Hi, Willem. Thank you very much for joining us today at the summit. We're very sorry that you couldn't join us in person, but we deeply appreciate your efforts and T-Rowe commitment to promoting the blue economy and contributing to this important discussion. I would like to start by mentioning that the National Center of Blue Economy and Innovation and T-Rowe are currently exploring collaborations on the development of blue bonds. And we are very honored to have you here with us to share your valuable insights with our investors and also with our startups. So thank you very much for that. Now, T. Rowe Price is a leading global investment management firm with offices in 17 different countries and over $1.5 trillion in assets under management. What drives your interest in investing in the blue economy? And could you also share a few words about what blue bonds are and what key benefits they offer to investors?
No, absolutely. And first of all, thanks for having me on the call, unfortunately, and not in person, but nevertheless super excited and about being here. Um, but yeah, it's maybe it's good to indeed to start off with what blue bonds are. And blue bonds are bonds where the use of proceeds are exclusively earmarked for ocean-friendly products or critically clean water projects. Um, and I think some of the benefits, particularly for investors, are that blue bonds offer, alongside a financial return, of course, also the opportunity to directly direct investments or capital towards clean water or clean oceans directly. So typically, what we see is that investors that have an interest of targeting clean water now do that through allocating capital, what they call green bonds. But when we think about green bonds, in theory, this is true, but in practice, green bonds allocate most of their use of proceeds towards renewable energy, green buildings, and less than 10% goes to water or oceans. So, from that perspective, blue bonds can really add value here to investors because it gives the opportunity to be able to direct capital directly to water and promote healthy oceans at the same time. Um, I think what's also very important to note is the fact that when we think about our marine environment today, blue bonds can really make a dent and help close the funding gap that is needed to save our oceans because our oceans are in dire states. In total, to get to say to healthy oceans, we need roughly 150 billion US dollars per year to achieve that target. And we believe that blue bonds can play a pivotal role in this exercise.
Okay, so I've been involved in the blue economy for over a decade, and it is very difficult to draw a clear line between promoting a blue economy, which aim to ensure sustainable use of ocean resources, and accelerated development in marine environment that may affect these ecosystems. It is very delicate balance that must be maintained when making decisions and investments. How do you take this into account? And what measurable impact have blue bonds had on marine conservation and sustainable development?
Yeah, so when you think about the impact of blue bonds and measurable impact, as you highlight, because that's really important, we need to measure it overall. After all, it's first important to note that blue bonds are still a relatively new concept. So the first blue bond was launched in 2018 by the World Bank. But some of the ways that we can measure the impacts that blue bonds have is through measuring, for example, and particularly on oceans, what we can do is measure the increase of mean species abundance per square kilometer. We can measure the square kilometers of marine area protected, or maybe a bit further out is looking at the tons of recycled plastics or greenhouse gases emissions avoided through the decarbonization of shipping vessels. And maybe good to give an example here, just to make it a bit more concrete. I think plastics, we see a lot of plastic rivers, plastic oceans. We all know those images, but when you think about the largest PET resin producer, which is the feedstock for plastic bottles, this is a Thailand company called Indorama. They have issued a few blue loans together with the IFC, and where the funds of these loans are directly used to fund their plastic recycling initiatives. And they've set themselves some very ambitious targets of achieving 50 billion recycled bottles of plastic by 2025. And through this investment, the company was able to recycle up to 22 billion bottles of recycled plastic by 2023. And those are very good and very useful information. Like those numbers are very useful in order to measure the positive impact that we have with those investments.
Thank you for that. And what do you think? What are the main challenges in issuing the managing blue bonds, particularly in ensuring that the funds are used effectively and delivering on their environmental promises?
Yeah, that's a very tricky question, and I like it because it's a very important one. Because, as you may know, we're actively reaching out to issuers, engage with them on issuing blue bonds, and that's actually the biggest pushback we get is like we can't see in our project pipeline that we have enough eligible projects that are bigger than if we bundle them, that they're big enough to issue blue bonds. Quite often these initiatives, do not add up to 100 million. And that's why a lot of the blue initiatives are funded through the private market, which makes a lot of sense. But what we've seen is with the IFC narrating guidelines on blue finance, and more recently last year in September, ICMA published also a guide to issue bonds to help build a sustainable ocean economy. These kind of guidelines help us to better understand what projects qualify, and can help us also actually look at what projects has the company done in the last 2-3 years, and what are they expecting to do in the next 2 to 3 years. And if we get an overview of that total picture, we're much better to assess the total size of a potential blue bond issuance. And just to give an example, again, like port companies, for example, it wasn't clear that in the beginning when we're thinking about blue bonds issuance, that their renewable energy initiatives would also classify under blue. And any efforts related to rolling out sustainable shipping fuel infrastructure would classify. And if you allow them to look back, say, and also includes the refinancing of projects that they funded 2 years ago, we all of a sudden could kind of grow the scale of proceeds from sub 100 million to over 300 million. And that's actually a significant size that allows us to be able to go out in the market and issue a blue bond. So that's a long answer to your first question. First part of the question, but maybe to touch quickly on the reporting and the monitoring that you also flagged. This is clearly important, and particularly what we see that because of the sensitivities around our oceans and marine environment, it is much more important to have a good understanding of how we are going to measure it, because the last thing you want is being caught up in blue washing. So what we do is, through those exact frameworks I just referred about, where reference is made to specific KPIs that are measurable and that are objective, we can help issuers steer in the direction of which KPIs to use. But also there's willingness from the investor base, but also bank syndicates or special dedicated committees that can help less experienced blue bond issuers and have less sophisticated measurement frameworks in place to touch upon those committees and our help to help them set up best practices for reporting and monitoring. And through that, we hope that we can contribute and ensure that monitoring is done correctly. And lastly, really the cherry on the cake would be a situation where you have the reported KPIs being audited either by an independent accountant or an SBO provider.
That's totally right. So here we have seen a development, as you mentioned, the green bond in the recent years. How has the market for blue bonds evolved in the recent years, and what trends do you see shaping its future?
I touched already upon about like the green bond market or the blue bond market only started in 2018 with the World Bank bonds. Since then, we've seen 53 blue bonds issued to date, and if we add the total outstanding amount of blue bonds out all up, we get to a total amount of let's say 7 to 8 billion blue bonds outstanding. So still relatively small. But if you draw a parallel to the green bond market, this is exactly where the green bond market stood 12 years ago. And given the increased investor interest for blue bonds and the increasing engagements we are having with issuers, I am actually quite positive that we can see similar growth rates that we've seen for the green bond markets. And putting this into numbers from our engagement, we expect over the next 12 months the blue bond market to grow by roughly $2 billion US dollars. So it's still from a small, in absolute numbers, it's still small, but the growth rates look pretty compelling.
And if you could please, before we finish, share with us some example of successful projects that have been financed by blue bonds.
Yeah, I think I'd like to stick, given we're also talking to companies here and entrepreneurs, maybe best to stick to corporate examples. So BDO Unibank is one example. That is a Philippine bank, one of the largest in the country. They issued $100 million blue bond in 2022. And they provided finance for basically to help prevent marine pollution and preserve clean water resources. And projects that have been financed through this bond relate to clean water conservation, support sustainable tourism, wastewater treatment facilities rollouts, and plastic recycling, as I already highlighted, is a big topic in Southeast Asia. Another example could be Ørsted. This is a Danish renewable company that had a remarkable transition from an oil and gas company to a 100% renewable company. They issued a 100 million euro blue bond last year in 2023. And this blue bond was issued to promote sustainable use of ocean resources through sustainable shipping fuels, but also preserving marine biodiversity and a healthy ocean ecosystem. And what I really like about this blue bond is the fact that when you think about how the allocation of the proceeds has been, they have, in addition, obviously, to supporting infrastructure for green ocean fuels, they've also done investments in, for example, growing corals on offshore wind turbines, restoring seagrass, and actually also investing in noise mitigation technology of their offshore wind parks. So really exciting and innovative use of proceeds for that bond.
Thank you for that. So it is certainly sounds very impressive and very inspiring. And congratulations on the wonderful work you're doing in this field. And I really hope that we will attract more and more investors today in the summit to join this important movement. Thank you for sharing your insight with us and for contributing to the promotion of the blue economy.
Thank you so much, Hila, and good luck for the rest of the summit. Looking forward to keep on the engagement going. Thank you.